gift through His word. It's God's gift through His word. It's God's gift through His word. It's God's gift through His word. All right. Hello, everyone. How are you guys doing today? Happy Tuesday. And of course, since it's been a minute, happy October to you. So, October is, of course, Domestic Violence Awareness Month. So, hence all the purple. And I wanted to share this today because it has it has been something. And yesterday, I had encountered someone. So I'm going to share this story. But right now, I'm just going to talk about triggers linger. And then I'll share the story of a young lady I ran into on yesterday. Girl just be going through some stuff. And you never know what kind of adventure you're going to run into. And for me, I didn't know what kind of adventure I was going to run into. But here I am. So let's go ahead and start. So since this is Domestic Violence Awareness Month and it is October, I definitely always want to talk about, the the domestic violence hotline, that 800 number. So definitely check it out. They also have a way to text if you are going through that situation. And also, if you think someone's watching you like digitally, there's a way you can tap off and it not be you not be watched. And I understand very much what that is when you are being cyber stalked and all of that stuff because your girl's gone through that. So always here to support and encourage. So as I talk about this, I wanted to share a little bit about trigger responses and they lingering. And one of the things that I found for me is I'm out here walking, y'all, getting my workout in. And I don't normally want to do lives anymore because I know, you'll come back and you'll see it later. But for now, I'm going to put my phone in my backpack. So hopefully it doesn't have any issue because I'm using my mic as I walk. But anyway, I had a dear friend you guys know, Pastor Jay, and we talk about a whole bunch of stuff. And real quick, shout out to him. He's always been supportive. And you guys check out Walk in Truth TV on YouTube, and just check out Walk in Truth Radio Network on the podcast to check it all out. He's always got amazing stuff to listen to get insight, to spiritually grow and become mature. That's my plug for my dear friend. I always got to plug him because he does so much for me and he's an amazing support in anything that I do. So, uh, right now, responses linger. And so I wanted to deal with that because sometimes you think that you've overcome something and you have gotten over it. You have moved beyond it. And sometimes there's a little bit that still yet lingers, hence the title, Trigger Responses Linger. So I never know if I have overcome all the different areas that I might have triggers in. And some of us say, well, I don't have a trigger for this or I have a trigger for that. But then what about the ones you don't know? And you don't know how to respond until it actually happens. So I've been working on myself for years since going through domestic violence. And it's not a thing like it's over and I have, arrived. There's still things to work on. There's still ways that I respond. So like, whoa, where'd that come from? That wasn't a very good response. However, as I continue to grow and I continue to learn and I continue to learn more stuff about myself as far as triggers, those things can be hard. And some people may not like the word And they might not like that you say, well, you're triggered and you're oversensitive or you're activated, whatever the term is for the time. I know that when I went through this situation with my friend, there was a time where there was something that was brought up. And for some of you guys that don't know, I will share just a little bit and then one day I will go into it full out. But I was involved in a cult for a little bit. And I hadn't really talked about it, I hadn't really messed with it. So I was out of it. I was free. I was done. So, talking about it, I would just not because I was just free of it. So I didn't want to know I was even in that thing no more. However, when I started discussing it with a dear friend of mine, man, it brought up all kinds of emotions. And sadly to say, for me, I was just like, it threw me back. Like it was part of my going and dealing with domestic violence at the same time of that happening. So I had just left my at the time husband because he's my ex-husband now, but at the time I was still yet married to him. And excuse me. So when I had left and I found myself from Arizona to California, I had found I was trying to do stuff. I was trying to build a business. I was trying to get in all these guru classes and do the thing and try to start my life over and figure it out because I didn't have a job at the time. Although I had my little veterans money, it wasn't enough. California is extremely expensive. So I was trying to do all the things. Little money I had, I would give it to this business person and said, hey, do this. It's like, okay, let me try that. But, things weren't working because I didn't have a lot of the things that I needed anyway. So I was like, okay. So while I was going through all of that, thinking about what I was going to do, of course, I ended up writing the book, The Gift of Finding God's Love, Guilt and Shame Turned into My Shine. But during that time, while I was writing the book, I was also involved in a cult, which was, of course, unfortunate for me, it was a thing. So I was involved in that, and it was at the same time, like simultaneously at the same time. So I was like, okay, well, I was trying to focus on both things, trying to focus on figuring out resources, trying to focus on figuring out what I have to do for myself, and it was just a lot. So during that time of getting myself involved in a cult, I thought that it was wonderful because the person who was talking about it, which I've never spoken about her name, but I'll say it now because I have never. But her name was Dr. Princess Fumi Hancock. And I was in her group. Like, okay, so while I was doing that, I would hear her reading the scriptures and da 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 da. And so I would get up early, try to make it back to my parents' house so I could listen to her stuff. At the same time, I'm living in a transitional facility because I am there because of domestic violence. So hand in hand, I'm in one thing, not knowing I'm in a cult. The other thing is domestic violence, and they're running simultaneously at the same time. So for me, when my friend brought it up, it brought back a whole bunch of floods of emotion because I was dealing with the cult and domestic violence and fleeing at the same time. It was at the same time. I was like, oh my gosh. So I got out of one situation, not to mention I was living with my family who are very, very abusive in their way that they use their language. And they have always been like that. So I was like, dang it. I didn't want to leave abusive situation back to my family that's abusive with their talk and how they've treated me over the years. I didn't really want to be there. And then throw in the cult. So it was a whole mixture of stuff going on. So when I talked about the situation and questions were being asked, well, how'd you get in the cult? Well, how'd you figure it out? How'd they find you? What all these questions started flooding me. And then my mind for myself was like overloaded, like, whoa, whoa, hang on a second. Like we've dealt with domestic violence like alone, honestly, by itself. Like we could deal with domestic violence alone, by itself. You could be good because I know how to navigate that by itself alone. There's no tears or nothing. I worked that all out. But when you talk about something else that I never talked about, which is paired with domestic violence because I was involved in that at the same time, trying to figure out my spiritual life, which at the time I wasn't biblically literate. So I'm thinking, oh, this person's reading from the Bible. This has got to be good, but it wasn't. And so when all that was happening, and I spoke to my friend about the different things about it, it it really troubled me, and it really sent me into one of those places of, okay, you need to stop talking about this because you have never dealt with it, and it was too much for me emotionally to deal with, and I didn't want to snap because it caused me anger. It caused me anger, a lot of anger, a lot of almost extra rage because I did not even know I was in something that was not of God. I didn't know that. So anytime I speak of it, it hurts me because I did not have the discernment to know that that was not of God at all. Because people can read from the Bible, they can read it, they can share from it, but unless you know 100% that this is authentic, them sharing, they're just reading from the Bible and you have no idea their intentions of it. And really, the Bible has been used forever to control people. It's the best thing to control people because when people have their heart is for God, their heart is for Jesus. But when people see that, like, oh, this is a great way to manipulate, control, and they'll do whatever if I say God said. They'll do whatever if I say Jesus said in the word. And then they show you the scripture like, well, you can't disagree with the word except for the way they're using the word and twisting it. They're manipulating the text to control the person, which was happening with a lot of the women that were in the group. And these women weren't stupid by any means. These women had PhDs, master's degrees, bachelor's degrees. They were educated women. I was one of them. I was like, okay, so that trigger that rose up in me, it just had me laid out for a minute. I didn't want to talk to my friend for a long time because I didn't know how to respond. So I said, I need 7 days. I need 7 days. And I probably shouldn't have put a number on it. That was my bad. But I needed time. I needed a lot of time to deal with this because I had never dealt with it. So that was something that was lingering and not even just lingering, it added to some of the old triggers that I thought I had overcome. And I was like, okay, so there are coping mechanisms that people tell you to use, right? To cope with certain things. And I used one. I used an old school one. It wasn't taught to me. It was something that I always did when things got too hard for me or they got too hairy for me. I just shut down, which means I didn't talk to nobody. I go away. I really wanted to just disappear. It's almost like I would get rid of the person and you would never know. And I was good with that. Back in the day, I used to do that. It was called cutoff. And some of y'all know the cutoff game. My cutoff game was strong. Like if I don't get with you, I don't jive with you, and you said something that has hurt me, don't worry about it. You good. Keep doing what you're doing. I'm just going to cut you off and never talk to you again in life. And I had no problem doing that. I was quick to cut people off. But of course, that I had to learn over time that's not a very good way to handle situations when you're dealing with people, to just cut them off because you've been hurt or to cut them off because you don't like what they've said. Sometimes some of these things you have to work through. Some of these things you have to talk to people, articulate what's going on, and don't just kind of disappear and vamp, fade to black. And then you're no longer around and they don't know what happened because you just disappear. Like people that date and they get ghosted. Well, what did I do? It don't matter. The person doesn't want to confront the situation. You're not their type, whatever it is. They just ghost you. They just disappear. And you don't know why. And I was doing that. But to really bring this back full circle is I had never spoken. about my experience actually going through that. And it was uncomfortable. It hurt. I felt horrible. And I felt that at the time, I had abandoned God to go chase Satan. I was like, Lord, no. And I really like, no. Why would I ever do that? But I found myself doing that. And I found that I had learned a term. I was a Judas goat. I was like, no, 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 no. I'm bringing other people to the slaughter. I was inviting other women to come and follow along until someone let me know, girl, you in a cult. I was like, what? And even my mother at the time, and she's not, my family is just what it is. It's not always, never, always, ever kind. And she's like, oh, that's nice. And I used to do videos for this woman. Like I would sit on my little room or wherever I was, and I would talk about domestic violence. I talk about a lot of things. And my mother said to me when she saw me recording one day, she's like, that woman's smart. I was like, what do you mean, Mom? She's like, she's smart. She's getting paid while you do all the work. I'm like, what? She's like, if you're sitting there recording this video, she's getting paid and you're not. I was like, how does she know that? But evil recognized evil, so I guess I didn't know. But apparently she was. And I found later on there was a rental video for $14.99 and another one if you wanted to purchase it for $24.99 off the content that I labored over, or for the content that I shared, over the content that I put out. It was from me. It was things that I sat down and wrote, things that came out of my. She was profiting off of my back. And then when I told her a little bit about my story, she's like, ooh, if I could just take your story and make it into a book. I said, if anybody's going to profit off of my pain, it should be doggone well myself. Why should you profit off of what I've gone through? You didn't go through any of it. Why would you want to profit off of it? But we live in a culture like that now. And it's funny because I just listened to a podcast that Pastor Jay sent to me. I was talking about P. Diddy, and everybody knows all the stuff that he's been indicted under charges and all this other stuff. But isn't it funny that the abuse is going to continue on because there's going to be things that are hidden? And so there's no way for anybody to have recourse against anybody because you don't know. And you can't act if you don't know. So what does it mean? Then the wheel keeps on turning and keeps on going, and things kind of stay the same. One person takes the fall, and the other ones that should be culpable and held to account, they're let to leave because they have enough to pay to get rid of who they are. Okay, so that's one of those things. It's just like, okay, well, if that's going to be the case, what good does it do for you to tell on somebody if nothing's going to happen? And I mean, it happens even with people who are not celebrities. Like you give a name and you expect law enforcement to do what they're supposed to do. And sometimes they do, and then sometimes it does not work out for you. And I've had that experience that I've done those things and it didn't really pan out for me. But that's okay because I've learned from it, I've grown from it. But if you have those type of things, understand that trigger responses, they can linger and they can be somewhere in your life that you don't know because you've never had to yet address it. So know that and don't beat yourself up. Don't become, you know, in despair or anything like that. Just realize that you might have a blind spot or two or more, whatever it is. It's okay. It's all right. You just keep on going, keep on moving, keep on pushing. But with all that being said, as I'm walking out here and had to put my shades on because the sun came out, uh, Yesterday, I went to the gym because today I'm walking. But yesterday, I went to the gym and I saw a young lady. After I was done, I went to Sprouts. So I normally shop at Sprouts. And I was going to pick up something, some stuff for my kids, some little groceries and such. I'm like, okay. So I get out of my vehicle and I hear this weird noise. I'm like, what is that? And I just keep hearing. I was like, is that a baby cry? Like something going on? Somebody hurt? And this lady was walking and with her cart, and she was pushing a little baby, but the baby was quiet. I'm like, no, the baby. That's not the baby. It's not her baby. So I'm looking around and I hear it again. I was like, okay. Excuse me. It was quite annoying. I was like, okay, where is that sound coming from? When you hear something, you want to know where is that, or a song that you want to remember. It's just so annoying. You got to know what the song is. And for me, I was like, wait, who is the person making this atrocious sound, and what is the deal? So, so I finally see it's a young woman. And she's crying. She's like, "Oh my gosh!" So she's crying. I'm like, "Okay, it's her making that sound. It's her making the cry." So I said, "Okay, all right. Well, let me go over there." Everything in my gut was saying, "Just leave her alone and walk past her like everybody else is doing." There was a guy that came out of Sprouts. He looked at her like, "None of my business." And some lady walked past her. So she sit there crying like everybody just walked past her like, "Mm-mm. I don't want to be involved. She's probably high on crack. She's probably on drugs. Who knows? I don't want to be involved." That's I'll get away from her because she had a big duffel bag, and just her, and she's just sitting there. She's got all these tears on her face, so she just doesn't look like a good situation to want to get involved in. You just don't know. And she looked like she might have been on some stuff, but it was just her tears. So she looked not all right. So looked. Oh, thank you. Oh, no problem. So she looked like she had a lot of different tears and things. So her face didn't look as put together. So it was questionable. So anyway, she's she's crying, and so I walk over to her and I said, "Do you need any help?" And she's like, "Yes, I just had a fight with my boyfriend yesterday, and I lost my iPhone 13. I lost it." I said, "Oh, okay. Um, well, do you remember where it's at?" She's like, "I don't even know." And so this is how she talks. She's like, "Bro, I don't even know, bro. I don't even know. This is really effed up, man. Bro." So I was like, okay. So I was like, okay. She's like, she's like, "Are you busy right now?" I was like, "I am trying to go to Sprouts." But she's like, "Could you just go with me real quick to go look for my phone? Like over here?" So I said, okay. So she leaves her duffel bag, and I go walking with her to go past this this sporting bar, and we go look over the rocks, look over the partition, and she sees no phone. She's like, "Oh, it's not here." I'm like, "Did you leave it over here? Did you drop it?" I was like, "Do you know what color it is?" She's like, "It's white with sparkles." She's like, "I don't have a phone and I need my number." I was like, "Okay." She's like, "This is so messed up, man. I'm out here like this. I'm not even from this area." I was like, "Okay." Uh, I was like, "Did you think anybody turned in a phone?" She's like, "Maybe." She's like, "Do you mind coming with me to Quick Trip?" I was like, how about this? How about I stay with your duffel bag and you go over to Quick Trip?" She's like, "Okay, thanks." So she runs over to Quick Trip. She goes over there. She comes back. I see her head bobbing, so she's coming back. And before she comes back to me, she's walking through the area where we were looking before with the rocks and stuff. And she's looking, and she comes back, and she's still crying. And she's like, I said, "Did anybody turn anything in?" She's like, "No, it's not there, bro." I was like, "Okay, all right." And she's like, "What are you doing right now?" I was like, "I'm trying to go to Sprouts, but I'm talking to you to see if there's anything I could do." Sometimes even when you think the Lord's not placing you in a position to do something, He is, but you you just don't know. So this is this is gonna be not too much of a long story, but you'll see what happens in the end. So anyway, she wants me to take her to the guy's house she just left. And apparently they got in a fight that night, So this was on the 7th. So on the 6th, she got in a fight with him and whatnot. So on the 7th, which was yesterday, she's laying on the bench at Sprouts. And so I was like, okay. I was like, I'll just call you Uber over there. She's like, you can't just go with me right there, just real quick. She's like, you don't have a car, huh? I was like, I do, but I don't want to take no stranger in my vehicle. Like everything is saying with me, no. So she's like, let's walk over there. I was like, oh no, I'm not walking all the way over there to walk all the way. I'm not doing that. I said, okay, just come with me over here. She's like, and she grabs her duffel bag. She's like, it's right over here. I was like, no, we'll get in my vehicle. She's like, oh my gosh, thank you. I was like, okay, just put your stuff in here, put your seatbelt on, and let me drive you over to the place that you say the person's right there that got your phone. She's like, I have another phone. I was like, okay. And she's like, give me my ID. I was like, okay. So she goes to the house, and I'm sitting in front of some jacked up car with the front end messed up. So I'm waiting for her to go talk to whoever. I see a woman come out with some big tablet, show it to her, and the young lady's putting her hands in the air, like, no, that's not it. So she comes over to me. She's like, how come he's here sleeping? He's here sleeping comfortably. And I'm out here sleeping on this bench. She's like, isn't that funny? I'm like, oh, okay. So the lady comes back, and I said, well, she's like, this is so sucky. I was like, well, hopefully it'll be over. So she's like, I want to be over now. And she called me Miss T. Miss T, I want to be over now. She's like, it's so messed up. And so the lady comes back out, and so she disappears for a minute, and then she comes back. And she comes back with a phone. She comes back with a charger, and she comes back with a little wallet thing, and it's with her ID and stuff. So I said, oh, that's good. You got the phone and everything. She's like, you got a USB charger. Let me charge it. Don't ask nothing. Just put it in there. Like, okay. So she's trying to charge her phone. And so after that, we go back to Sprouts. She's like, you'll be able to bring me back to Sprouts. I was like, yeah, we'll go. I still need to shop at Sprouts. I still need to get something from there. So we go back to Sprouts. And she's like, can you turn the car on? So because we parked, she's like, can you turn the car on so I can charge my phone? I was like, I'm getting out. She's like, oh, okay. And I said, I don't have a plug or extra box or anything like that. And she's like, oh, okay. And she's like, so we go back, and she gets her duffel bag, and she sits back on the bench, and I sit back there with her. I was like, so what are you going to do? She's like, can I borrow your phone to call my sister? I was like, yeah, sure. So she calls her sister twice. Sister don't answer her phone, probably because it's a strange number. Don't answer it. So she's like, oh no. So do you have Instagram? I was like, yeah. She's like, okay, bet. So she go try to get on Instagram, try to Instagram someone, but she don't know her password, can't remember it. So it's not working. Excuse me. So I was like, okay. So I was like, so what are you going to do? She's like, I don't know. I'm not even from here. I actually live in Mesa. I don't know nothing out here. Oh, this is messed up. And I might be pregnant. No. So she's crying. She's hysterical. She's just continuing to cry. And then she stands up and takes her clothes off. I was like, oh my gosh. She take her shirt off. She's like, look, he ripped my bra. There's blood on me. Like he was choking me and everything and punching me and everything. Like, you don't do that. I was like, so obviously she went to domestic violence, right? So I was like, okay. So she puts her clothes back on, and I said, well, let me do this. I said, because you're not gonna get home. I'm telling you, you're not gonna get home if you don't have a car. From my area, it might be an hour and change to get to where she lives in Mesa. She's not walking all that way back. If she can, her legs might fall off, but she's not walking all the way back that way with a big duffel bag, and it was super hot. She's not doing that. So I said, okay, Lord, what should I do? I said, okay, let me just call her Uber with my name and send her. So I said, you know what I'll do? I said, I'll call you Uber and I'll send you home. She's like, really? I was like, right. So just go ahead and put in the address to where you need to go in Mesa, and then I'll just pay for the Uber and you go home. So she puts her information in. She wants to go to a Walgreens that's close, I guess, to her sister's house in Mesa. So I was like, okay, you put your address in? She's like, yes. So I said, okay. So I send for the Uber. It's coming in 11 minutes. So I said, okay, well, since it's not going to be here, let's go inside and go get you something to drink or something to eat if you need something like that, because, it's hot out here and you might be hungry. She's like, I can't even eat anything, Miss T. My stomach's upset. I was like, well, let's go get you something to drink then. So she gets some vitamin waters. They were on sale, 3 for $5. And I get her some kombuchas, 2 for $4. And after I bring it up, I give her all of it because first she didn't want the kombuchas. I said, you could just have it. And then I gave her $10. And I said, okay, I'm going to send you. So I said, oh, it says going to be here in a little bit. Let's go out here and go wait. And as soon as we walk out the door, there's the gentleman sitting in his vehicle. And I tell the gentleman, his name was Julius. I said, hey, Julius, I'm not going to take the ride, but she's going to take the ride for me. And he looked at her. He looked down underneath the car. He's like, is she drunk? Is she on drugs? I was like, no, sir, she's not on any drugs. She's not drunk. She just went through a bad situation last night. She just needs to get home. He's like, oh, I'm sorry to hear that. And so I said, here's the pen. And I had shown him the wrong thing. He's like, what is that? I'm sorry. Here's the pen. So he put the pen in. And I told her I also have my thing for safety. Whenever I take an Uber, it goes to my friend. So I said, I'll see your travel, and also my friend would see your travel. And so I will know if something happens to you, you should get back to that area. She's like, thank you, Miss T. I hope you're blessed like 3 times for this. It's such a blessing. She's like, I'm going to tell him about me getting back. And I was saying to myself, don't do that. Don't throw it in his face. Just be thankful you got to right back to where you got to go, and you're not stuck in this town where you don't know anything about this town. So I sent her back, and then I go in and go shop for myself. But through that whole situation, I said, there are so many people, and she was only 20. She's 20 years old, and she might be potentially pregnant. And she kept complaining that she didn't want to have him in her life. And I said, well, he doesn't have to be. I said, but you'll be fine. I said, right now it's hard, and that's going to be hard, but you'll be okay. And she's like, my sister's going to give me the business. Like, well, it'd rather be a sister than, somebody else. So anyway, after that, you know, I went home and saw my kids. I'm glad to be home. But I said, wow, I had an adventure, because I was thinking to myself, I was like, Lord, when I went to Sprouts, because I want to drop some stuff off at Goodwill, I was like, how am I going to waste all my time? It's like 7:40 something, and the place isn't open till 9. I need to get this stuff out. Well, what am I going to do till then? Well, look, the young lady, she took me round and round. By the time I, I got done with Sprouts and went over to Goodwill, it was past 9, and they've been open, so they took out all the donations out of the back of my trunk. I was like, oh Lord. Okay. I had a mini adventure that day, but it just reaffirmed and reignited in me. Already I had the passion for domestic violence, but to see a young woman who's only 20 going through it already and being choked, and she had, old blood on herself, and her chest was scraped up and stuff. Like, we have so much. And I found out that Arizona is the fourth highest in the nation for domestic violence. The fourth highest. That's not good. That's not a great place to be for highness. You want to be high for academics, high for economic growth. You don't want to be the fourth highest in the nation. Amongst other states in the country, we are number 4. I don't even want to know who's number 1, but we're number 4. So we're in the top 5. Okay, there's a lot of domestic violence here, and that just shows that this state needs a lot of support and help. And when I was looking in my area, there's not a lot of places to get resources out here. It's very limited. But other places, like California's got a smorgasbord of places you can go. Like, there's places on top of places on top of places you can get help, and you could go whole places and get lots of resources. It's hard because you got to connect them all, but they have the places. Out here, it's a little scarce. There's some, but there's not enough, and there needs to be more. And so for my specific area, I think they have only one. So that's very telling that we need more, and I have to stay doing what I'm going to be doing. I'm going to be on my mission. So I decided that on the second. I'm going to do first being a vendor, and I'm going to be talking about my book, selling my book, promoting my podcast. And the reason why is because of domestic violence. That's not the only thing I talk about, but because it is October, I will be, of course, focusing on it. And for those of you who think that domestic violence doesn't affect you, it totally does. It affects you in all different types of ways. It affects every area of our lives, not just the individual, but when things get broken and destroyed, and when you go with certain stuff and you see certain situations happening, that affects you. And then it's hard for people that are survivors or people that are coming and trying to start new. If they know you have that in your history, sometimes apartment complexes will not let you rent. They don't want the drama, they don't want you there. So you might go through a lot of places before they allow you to rent, excuse me, in their place because they don't want cops called. They don't want that there. They don't want none of it there. So it does make it challenging, and it does make it harder. And I know from firsthand experience of going through that what that can mean. And I know there's different ways to get out of certain things if they know you have domestic violence that you're trying to flee, you're trying to escape. But it's not easy. And some people don't understand some things that people have done. It's because of coercive control. You're in distress and you're doing stuff that you would normally do, but somebody has control over you, over your mind, over everything that you do. So, of course, it's like, well, I wouldn't do that. Be in something for a long time and then tell me. I hadn't really realized how long I had been married to my ex, and I had just done the math because I was really just focused on me getting away from him. So I had literally been married to that man for 12 years. So 8 of those was with him, 4 was separated, and I just had just gotten so my my divorce is it's done, but it's still kind of fresh because it's not a 20-year-old one. It's only 4 years old. And it took a long time at that time to even get it. So from when I left in 2016 to 2020, it literally took 4 years to get a divorce. But the entire time I was married up till 2020. So domestic violence and abuse, intimate partner violence and abuse is nothing to snicker at. It's nothing to laugh at. But we see it and people think it's funny. When I see those kinds of movies, they're like a scary flick to me because I understand what that means. And when I saw with Julia Roberts in Sleeping with the Enemy and her husband who she was trying to get away from found a way in her house and he loves to organize everything. When she came home from whatever fair she was with some guy having a great time and she comes home and she looks in her house and she looks in the cupboard, all the cans are organized. And then she sees that the towels that she left a little messy were all put nice and neat. The most scariest thing. That's the scariest thing for me. Just knowing that someone can have such a different, charming persona to everybody else on the outside. But behind closed doors, that's a different person. I'm sure for the men that have experienced women, they're a different person behind closed doors. But for me as a woman, my ex was charming. He could charm the socks off of anyone, and he always did, including the police officers. That's why nothing ever happened. So they have the ability to be so charming, so sweet, but that's just not reality because that's a fake persona, and that persona can only be held for so long. So, as I'm sharing and almost done with my walk, I want to let you guys know that if you have a friend that's going through domestic violence, please help them. Please be supportive. And it can be a little bit frustrating when they say, I'm going to go back to him. I'm going to go back to her. Like, are you kidding me? You just said They did blah, blah, blah. And you're going back. Remember, for some, it takes 7 times for some to really, really, really 100%, excuse me, leave, to really leave, say quits. And I had gone back once just to make sure I had made the right decision. So even I went back once and I wanted to get some extra stuff too. But I did go back once to say, is this real? Did I make the right decision? Do I need to have closure? And I found out when I left the first time I had made the right decision. But I wanted some of my stuff, so I did go back. But I didn't need a whole bunch of times to go back for myself. I just needed to see and make sure it was right. And it was. Do I regret leaving? 0%, absolutely not. Was it hard and is it hard? Yes. Even after you've left, some people think after you've left, it's all good, it's all gravy. No, you are now rebuilding your life, and rebuilding can take years because your life was decimated to zero. I am rebuilding, rebuilding, and it's going to take me some time. I'm still trying to get off that bandwagon where I look at my bank account like, oh, not again, right? But I'd rather be looking at a bank account saying not again than not be around for my kids and them not have a mother. Period. What's worse, right? All that stuff can be fixed eventually, and it will be. And the Lord has always been faithful to me and always has been with me, even through the very hard, tumultuous situations that I've endured. And I'm yet here to stand and tell you to stay strong. I want you to be encouraged. I want you to stay inspired by the Lord Jesus. Why? Because when you're going through something hard and tough like that, He's the only one that can help you and change the situation around. Some people say that prayer changes things. I'm going to let you know that's 100% true. But you got to be faithful to talking to him. You got to be faithful, even when you don't understand. Let me tell you, I would read, pardon me, I would read my Bible and I would hide. I would hide in my closet to read it. I didn't understand what I was reading, but I would read it. I didn't have a study Bible that was good enough to help me. I had a Zondervan, but I was still trying to learn. I was still trying to read because I said, I know that reading his word and praying is going to change this thing. I don't know when, I don't know how. I don't see an out because there is no out for me at the time. There was no out. It was all black, no doors, no windows. I was trapped like a rat. But he did bust down that blackness, bringing some marvelous light and provide me a way of escape, and I took it. And I must be, and you must be, always sensitive to the Holy Spirit. Don't ignore when you have an inclination and it says to you to do something. You do it. It doesn't matter. You do it. And I left when I was told by that still small voice that some people say is there. I just know there was an inclination that I had that I needed to leave. And it was so strong. I was like, okay, took my kids, packed up, had nothing, and I left. Do you know how I was going to find anything? Because I didn't. I didn't find anything. I didn't know, but man, it did work itself out. But it was challenging for me. It was a very hard situation, but the Lord was faithful through all of it. And I have stories upon stories to share, but the Lord is always faithful. And I wanted to get on today to share with you all that no matter what you face, no matter what it is, domestic violence included, God is faithful. Now, I'm so grateful and thankful all the time, each and every day, because that situation that I'm sharing to you for my life, for that young lady's life, those stories could be way different because there are some people and I've heard their stories, and they're not here to tell their own stories. They're not with us anymore. So we all are going to someday leave up out of here. But when it comes to domestic violence, you shouldn't want to leave that way. And for some, their story is that they left and they can't tell the tale. And I'm here to still tell the tale, and I'm going to continue to tell the tale. So as I continue and get back in the swing of getting on here, I'm going to share because it's important and it's vital. And as I learn what I am to do with this, all these different talents and gifts and abilities, God has given me all this stuff. I'm like, Lord, what do I do with it all? Like, where is it? Where's it supposed to go? Where is it? Where does it fit? It's like there's a whole bunch of puzzle pieces, and I need to put it in a puzzle. But where? But I'll let the Lord work that out because I don't need to know the how. I just need to trust Him and walk in faith with what I do, whatever that I'm doing. So I'm being faithful with that at the very minimum and doing the things that I know to do. So, doing my BSF, I know to do that. Encouraging people and doing my podcast, I know to do that. So everything else, it will work itself out. So I know that I wrote my book. I knew to do that. So as you're walking, it really does matter that you pay attention to what the word says. We walk by faith, not by sight. So every step you're taking in the direction that the Lord is pushing you is a step of faith. It's a step of faith. So you got to take that step and boldly step down because the Lord Jesus, He got you. But you got to move and you got to walk and you got to go. You can't just sit idle like, well, if I move to the left, it might be the wrong decision. If I move to the right, it might be the wrong decision. If I go forward, it might be the wrong decision. You definitely can't go backwards because you already been there. So left, right, forward, just move ahead. There's nowhere else to go but forward. There's nowhere else to go but press towards the mark of the high calling on your life. You go, you press on, you move ahead. As much as there's so much different trying things, you don't stop, you don't get sidetracked. You don't want to go and take your amazing vehicle that the Lord has given you. And I'll talk about your spiritual vehicle. You don't want to take that vehicle and start driving down the boulevard of anxiety, heading down to the road of doubt and despair, and sitting on the corner of worry central. You don't want to do that. You don't want to be around those lanes. But what you do want to do is take the highway of trust on the freeway of faith. That's what you want to do. And you roll that thing and you go. And you're going in that spiritual vehicle and you're just rolling. You got your freeway of faith and you are taking that trust and you are rolling on that. And that's what we got to remember. It is a thing of trust and faith, but you lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways, acknowledge Him, and He will direct your paths. He knows where you are going. You may not know because you have no idea, but keep walking. And as you walk, your path will unfold. But if you should stop and just stay idle, there's no way the Lord can unfold your path because you don't want to move. We have to get out of our own way. And sometimes we have to get out of our familiar comfort zones. Some of us, we're doing stuff in the familiar. Yes, you're volunteering in your church, which is great. I don't say don't. Yes, you're giving to the church. Yes, that's great. I don't say don't. But what about you doing stuff in your community? You're doing stuff where it's familiar and it's comfortable for you. Are you in your community sharing about your faith with other people besides your regular believers and the regular people that you see daily and weekly, which is not bad? But what about those that don't ever see you? Like even monthly. You barely know who they are. You've never seen them. You have to get out in your community. And that's what I've been doing. Getting out in my community. I'm taking something called In my area, it's called the Citizens Leadership Academy, learning about the community I live in, learning about the government here. And I'm seeing faces I've never seen before because I don't know them. But in that, you get to build relationship as much as I am building community. I need to learn about my community and need to learn some about some of the people in it. And I bet if I would continue, I might find there are some people that want to champion what I do and they want to stand alongside me. But how will they know if I'm not out in the community? So I'm very excited about doing the November 2nd thing. It's called Concert in the Parks here where we're at. They're going to have one in October and another one in November. And I'm going to be a vendor for the first time ever. And I'm looking forward to doing that because I need to be out there in the community, seeing other people, sharing inspiration to others. But I can't do that just in my familiar area and behind my four walls. Like, yes, I love sharing with you guys on my podcast, and I'm going to continue to do that. Don't get it twisted, okay? I'm going to continue to do that. Excuse me, pardon me. But what I'm not going to do is just say, okay, that's it, that's all. I'll just do what I normally do, and that's it. No, there are people in my community that can need help and inspiration. And like the young lady I ran into who's 20, she needed my help. But I could have just gone from the gym and gone home, but then she would have been stuck out here. And I don't even know why I was going to Sprouts because I know I want to go to Sprouts to go and get something, but I was like, do I really need something for Sprouts? Because I don't think so. But I was going there not for me, but for her because she needed a way to get home. And if not, she would have been a new homeless person in this area. And we don't really have a lot of homeless shelters here as it is because we're still like a very new community. We're only 20 years old. So there's a lot of things and services that are not here. So she would not have any help. And who knows how she would get around because we also don't have that many buses and she don't have any money. So yeah, it was just going to be a bad situation on top of a bad situation, making a bad situation even worse than what she was already in. So I just wanted to share that with you guys and say thank you all for when you guys listen and tune in and follow on the times I have lives. Thank you. I know sometimes it can be a challenge. You're like, you're not around. But sometimes I just need to take a little break and it's all right. Sometimes breaks are coming. But I do want to let you guys know that Pastor Jay and I we'll be getting ready to do cuffing season because it's coming. Okay, cuffing season's coming, and there's some new terms coming. So, super excited about that. So, I hope you guys are going to have a blessed day. Remember to be blessed, motivated, always inspired to do what the Lord lays on your heart. And remember, a big kiss from me. I love you with the love of the Lord Jesus Christ. You guys have an amazing and fantabulous day. Thank you guys for tuning in today. God bless your hearts. You guys take care.
Get through his word. It's God's gift through his word. It's God's gift through his word. It's God's gift through his word.